Well, what's going on out there? It's Dave Duford yet again with my No BS final expense training over here on the YouTubes. Hope you guys are having a fantastic first day of spring. Finally going to warm up down here in East Tennessee. The snow is long gone and life is getting better by the day, which means soon enough it's going to be nice and warm and going to be nice to be outside again. Again, hope you guys have had a great week. Glad to have you back on the air. And in today's topic, we're going to be talking about why insurance careers are mostly, I should put in that variable in there, mostly a scam, and what you can do about it. So it may, for those of you who are new to my video streams and videos and all my stuff on YouTube, may come as a surprise, talk a little bit about why me recruiting agents potentially is a scam, because that's what many people infer. Now, it's not a scam, at least for me, but this generally, in general, this particular business is rife with shenanigans. And so much so that a lot of people just don't understand what they're getting into once they start the process of getting into the insurance business. Hey, Daniel, how you doing? Thanks for joining me, man. And so I like to put these kind of videos together really as a primer for either agents who are brand new, they're newly licensed, maybe they're investigating different outfits to work with and just aren't sure where to go and kind of want some due diligence assistance, or for those that are looking to get into the business and don't know much of anything, because that's kind of the trick here with the insurance business. Most people getting in don't know really anything. And they have to trust the people above them to provide them the answers and solutions as to how to get started. So what happens is that it's really important to know as much as possible. Now, you don't have to know everything. You just need to know what to stay away from for the most part in order to give you the optimal chance of getting set up and running in any kind of insurance line. Now, I sell final expense. I recruit agents for final expense. But this information is good for any type of insurance-related career. So take it with a grain of salt. If it applies in your particular decision of where you want to go, perfect. And otherwise, my goal for this training is really just to better prepare those guys who are thinking about getting into insurance or who are involved and want to make sure that their setup is perfect. Because here's the deal. Again, before I get into the specifics here, a lot of people get involved in this business. Let me rephrase this. The insurance business, it doesn't really matter overall. About 90% of the people fail out in the first year. There's a lot of different reasons why. I think the number one reason why people fail is because there's a lack of work ethic. It wasn't for them. There's all sorts of reasons why. It just doesn't pan out. And the top 10% producers are going to be top producers no matter where they go and what kind of lines of insurance they sell. But there's about a middle 20 or 30% that somewhere in the middle there are greatly influenced by a variety of different factors. Usually it's one or two that if their current setup has it, they'll flourish and they can make a great career out of this. And if their certain agency doesn't have what they need, or is negative in the regards that we're about to talk to, it may cause them to fail. So really my video here is for those people out there in that middle category, because they can be greatly swayed to success or failure with the inclusion or exclusion of these particular factors that I'm going to mention. So I think it's really important. I think it makes a tremendous difference. And so let's get started on overall what factors we're talking about here. And I want to say this overall. Again, for you experienced guys, I've talked about this a lot. You've heard it from others, I'm sure. A lot of this will probably be boilerplate, typical stuff, but you cannot ever stop emphasizing the importance of it, especially for new people, because they don't have the knowledge, experience, and a base of experience that we do, of which many of us who have done well in this business and have survived, unfortunately, have learned this through the process of experience. And have made it through it despite experiencing some of these shortcomings. So the big thing I want to mention here as an overarching reality with the majority of the places you're going to see that recruit agents, there is a multi-level marketing mindset that predominates probably 80 to 90% of the agencies that are out there. Now, what do I mean by that? I have no particular biases against multi-level marketing. Doesn't matter where you do business, someone's going to get paid, someone's going to make money, cost of goods have to be paid for, and the people at the top, just like in any business, are the ones who are going to make the most money. I don't have a problem with the concept, so I'm not insulting the business type, but what you have to understand is there's a culture mentality that goes along with multi-level marketing quite commonly, and it's essentially the concept of recruiting and building passive income. That can certainly be done in the insurance business, and that's what most agencies do. But the problem with that mentality, the problem with that mindset, is that what happens is a lot of these people proverbially put the cart before the horse. And so what happens is they get obsessed with this idea of growing a huge team that goes out and produces and then replicates the recruitment pattern because the people above them are all doing the same thing and making a crazy amount of money. Here's the problem. The insurance business takes a level of training, of motivation, and access to carriers in order to be successful at it. It doesn't matter if you're in mortgage protection or final expense or any kind of insurance-related business. You've got to be able to have access to somebody that knows what they're doing, that has wisdom that's built upon experience selling. Keyword selling, not recruiting. And so what happens is these recruiters go out and recruit people who the recruiters have no way to train these people. They have no on-the-ground, in the trenches type of experience. And so they hire a bunch of people who are eager and who don't know any better. They just see the same things that they saw and wonder, hey, if they're doing it, I can do it too. But they don't understand the disconnect, which is the guy that recruiting probably in many cases has never sold a policy or just is a miserable failure at it. And so what happens to those agents that go that route, they get hooked up with these companies, typically at really poor commission levels. And then what happens is they don't get the training necessary to go out there and make a real honest college try at giving this business a shot. And when most of them fail out, they blame it on the lack of support, they blame it on the system, how it was failed them, blah, 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 which has credence and has some sort of legitimacy to it. So it's important to look for organizations like that and to stay away from them. So how do you find these organizations so that you don't get with them? Well, first of all, it's usually the biggest and heaviest and most relentless at putting ads out, recruiting, and that kind of thing. They'll tell you about recruiting and building a team as that being their primary focus. They'll talk more about building a team than they will about selling. That's another red flag. Your agency you work with, no matter what you sell, should be focused primarily on teaching you how to be successful selling. Recruiting, if that's something you want to do, can come later. But please develop a base of experience and knowledge so you can translate that into an asset of which a lot of people will love to train with you if you have the ability to go out there and prove you know what you're talking about. So look for those red flags. A lot of them have big opportunity meetings. They are heavy emotional pitch. They like to show their 1099s. They like to do all these sorts of very emotionally driven type of events and setups to get people drinking the Kool-Aid. It's almost like a cultish type of setup. And again, not being disrespectful to multi-level marketers, but as those know in the business, there's a lot that do that stuff. So if you ever get the sense of any of that kind of stuff, my recommendation is just to stay away, because the likelihood is very high that you're not going to get superior training. Thus, you're not going to get a superior experience. So just stay out of the way. Don't bother with them. I'm of the persuasion that whatever business you're involved in, it's better to look for a boutique agency or an agency that's specialized in actually selling final expense, but any kind of insurance. That's their design. They go out and recruit maybe, but their goal is to help you develop into a superior sales agent, because those people generally are more interested in developing you up and keeping you on board and putting you in a position where as you make sales, they make overrides. That's how agencies make commissions off you. And so that you can go out there and be an asset to those business. and continually to be, so that the agency can make a living off of recruiting, training, and keeping you satisfied. Daniel says, I remember those meetings. Do you want to make $250,000 this year? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with those numbers. It's just that there's a disconnect, as you know. It's selling the sizzle, which is a part of the sales process. But you also have to sell the steak too, because the steak is what makes the difference. The sizzle makes it sexy. But hey, you got to have some substance to the sizzle. And that's kind of where the lacking is always at with these large, multi-level marketing-driven organizations. So again, it's important to understand this, because I promise you, I'm not as exciting as some of these guys are. They get up on stage and shout and holler and do all sorts of crazy stuff and got great production quality. I'm a lot more boring than that, but I know what I'm doing too. And so if an agent's wanting to learn final expense with me, I cannot, we're not going to get on stage and clap hands and sing Kumbaya. We're going to get out in the field and get belly to belly with prospects and show through doing, because that's what you want. That's what you should want if you are serious about being successful in this business. And hey, you want to recruit, build a team, that's totally admirable. It's just a process, in my opinion, that takes time. Give yourself the time to know this business, and then you become indispensable when it comes to recruiting and developing a team, because people will want to be with you and learn from you when you can show them success. Hey, what's up, King? Thank you. I think, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe your manager says the same things. Hopefully he says put the brakes on recruiting. I think that is a good thing to do until you know what you're doing. It takes longer, and it's a lot of people don't like that necessarily, but I promise you it's worth it in the long run. My guys that recruit with me, I didn't approach them until about a year or two of experience in the business, and we kind of have like a recruiting agency syndicate where we recruit agents and mutually help develop them into producers. But the key thing for me in my business was I didn't want anybody who just came off the street and had multi-level marketing experience to go out there and recruit and do what they do in a downline. I just didn't want that. It kind of destroyed my brand, if you will. And so it was very important for me, while I wanted to grow my business, to put the right people in place that knew what they were doing and could back it up with experience, because that's really what makes me passionate and excited, is getting people in who know how to do this stuff and putting them in positions to go out there and recruit, because I've trained them, I know what they're doing, and they're going to be a lot more successful training the good agents that are there and developing them into having careers where they're free of the grind, the 9-to-5 grind, and they can work and make their own business in this world. So thank you, the King. Appreciate that. So continuing on here, that's kind of the general scope of things. You got to be careful of the multi-level marketing mindset for sure. Now, there are some contractual issues you should always be careful of that can turn your agency or insurance selling experience into a scam real quick. The first thing is vesting. So what is vesting? So vesting essentially tells you who owns your business. And more specifically, with most contracts, who owns your business when. Take the company named after an American president. I will not give you any more details than that. But if you look at their contract, most of them stipulate on one of the pages that for the first 2 years you are not vested. Now what that means is that you don't own your book of business, and you are not entitled to any renewals or any as-earned income if you're terminated from your contract. And it doesn't matter what kind of termination, we'll get into momentarily. But if you're, let's say you do business and you leave in the 23rd month, that's within the 2 years, you don't get any more of your income that you wrote as business. Now, why is that a problem? Well, you see, if you're in a setup where you're paying for your leads, where you get your, you have to come out of your cash, or you have some sort of financial obligation to generate your own business, I believe, in my opinion, it's your business. It should be your business, because you paid for the rights to get that opportunity for the business, and you were good enough to close it. You should also get the rights to not just the advance commission, but also the future income that throws off in the form of renewals and as-earned commissions. Problem with a lot of organizations is they do this contractual game where if you get terminated, and it doesn't matter if they terminate you for non-production, they don't like you anymore, they're tired of you, whatever. It's at will in a contractual setup because you're a 1099 independent contractor. You're not an employee. If they can you, and it's within that 2-year period, all that income that you should have gotten was gone. I'll give you the perfect setup. I had an agent I talked to about 6 months ago, got a letter from said company that stipulated he was going to be terminated after the 30 days was up. Well, he was at month 23 when he got this letter. Actually, it was September the 3rd when he got the letter, but the letter itself was dated for August 28th, let's just say. And if he was terminated, according to the letter, which is dated 8/28, on 9/28, he started, his contract was dated for October 1st, 2 years ago. That was within the 2-year period of time. This guy wrote like 150, 180 grand for the first couple of years. He would have lost $30,000 in business that he bought the leads for, that he sold to, that were rolling in off the books to come to him. He would have lost all of that. And then he would have been out of all that business. I mean, that's crazy. But because the contract, thankfully for him, said he had to be notified within 30 days, his notification first came on the 3rd of September. So he just skated by that 2-year mark where he would have lost $30,000 plus in income. And where does that income go? And this is the other thing. It goes to their upline managers. It's a way to take money from agents that are producing. And the point you should be concerned about is, number one, there's a reason it's 2 years, because most agents are done in 2 years, or done sooner than that. So the managers make out like a bandit because they get to own that renewal income that would have been paid out. Number two, it also gives you no leverage in your contract with your agency. You know, I believe your contract, if there is one, should be balanced. There's give and take to it. But ultimately what happens is you don't have any sort of right to your income. If you don't like the setup, if things aren't like how you thought they would be, and you leave within those 2 years, you're sacrificing a lot if the upline decides to terminate you, which I'm not saying they would, but when they've got an income opportunity to take over your future renewals, there's a little bit of a bias to do so. So you got to be very careful because for obvious reasons. You're in business for yourself, whether you like it or not. And you have a really crappy setup if your business ain't yours for the first 2 years. Because again, these people sell the dream. They sell blue sky. They show you, like Daniel said, $250,000 a year. They get you pumped up and hyped up into this emotional state where you think I can do it too, which is great, you can. But what if everything they say, or even part of what they say, doesn't really mesh well with your personality, with how you view the business should be done, and you decide that this setup isn't right for you? That's kind of what they're counting on to an extent, people, and that's kind of my point, is some of these people walk away. Otherwise, they get dialed and locked in, and they can't leave so easily, even though when their setup is not the best, even though if their prices are through the roof. And so all these things you got to be very, very careful with. If at all possible, join a carrier, a company that doesn't vest you, or I should say vest you 100% from the first day. So like for example, my agency, if an agent joins my business, joins the mentorship program, selling final expense, they do business with me for 3 months, 6 months, they hate my guts, they hate the business, it doesn't matter. Their future commissions will still be paid out to them anyway. The only way they wouldn't get it if they was terminated for cause. For example, if they were fraudulent about submitting and issuing an application or did some shenanigans. And that's the only way to get it taken away from. But I can't go in and terminate that guy to get his money. That's the important point. And everybody you work with as an agent, in my opinion, should set up their agency that way. You're in business for yourself. You're taking a risk. You should also get the reward too. And that's my point, no matter what happens with your setup. Couple of questions here. Daniel says, all my residual went back to my branch manager. Yeah, so you know exactly what I mean. Daniel continues and says, that was back in 2013 in my book. I could touch until last year. Couldn't touch. I'm writing you an email about exactly when I get home. Sorry for spelling you as speech to text. No problem. I figured that out on my app too, and it's all screwed up and some of the stuff I'm saying. It's funny, but it's super convenient. Yeah. Email me. I'll give you some more information on that. But yeah, see, that's what I mean is a lot of these setups, especially the more, how do you say, I say reputable, but the more brand name type of insurance companies follow this guideline. Your book of business you develop for them is not yours. You don't own it. And so if you do leave, you're out of luck. Okay, so avoid that at all costs. It's a price a lot of us had to pay. I luckily didn't have to, but know plenty of agents that did. And it's easily avoidable. If you just ask the questions, you review the contracts. In fact, if you got a contract, you want me to look at it, I'm no lawyer. I offer marginal advice, if any at all. I don't even know if I would listen myself. But if you wanted me to tell you what I thought about the contract, I can give you some pointers on what I have experienced. Okay, Daniel, yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's exactly what they do. Angelina, excuse me, how you doing? Thanks for joining. What do you think is a fair starting commission? Good question. It's kind of a loaded question. It just depends on what you're getting, ultimately. If you're getting free leads, you're getting support, you're getting training, and the leads are fresh for the most part. In the final expense business, I don't know how else it would compare elsewhere, because different products offer different commissions. There's companies out there that'll offer 50 to 65% commission for a free lead program where they get support and training. People that pay for their own leads generally shouldn't be paid any less than 80% commission, because you got to factor in you're carrying the cost of generating the leads. Agents that are very well trained, that are experienced, and do their own lead generation easily should be making 100% or more on most of their products, usually even more than that. That's kind of a rough example. What you don't want to do is get recruited at one of these multi-level marketers, which I could tell you the name, I could tell you in an email, and they start you at 50, 55%, and they want you to buy a $40 mortgage protection lead. That's crazy. That's highway robbery. There's very little margin for error, and you need that commission spread to absorb the cost of your generation of your leads to give you the best chance. Because some weeks are great, some aren't. You don't want to lose money if you can help it. You want to be constantly profitable. And your commission level is a huge determination of that. All right. Ricky, yes, read the contract. Daniel's exactly right. Have no qualms at all saying, hey, man, everything sounds good. Let me take a look at your contract. Give me a couple days to review it. If I got some questions, I'll ask you. Any decent organization will be happy to comply. And if you get any resistance, that's the first red flag that you probably shouldn't do business with them. And more than anything, I can tell you this, guys, trust your gut. We have instincts for a reason. Human beings have been around for 250,000 years, if not more, and we've survived all these years. We have gut feelings that we sense things are wrong for a reason. It's evolutionary. It's instinctual. Trust your gut. If you get a reaction that's negative to reviewing the contract, be aware. It's probably not a good deal. Ricky says, Daniel, I used to work with bankers. What state are you in? Okay. And then he's out of Georgia. Same thing happened to him. Absolutely. I had 10 minutes to review and sign. See, that's a bunch of crap, It's a contract. I mean, don't get me wrong, Daniel. No, I'm not cursing you or criticizing you whatsoever, but it's a bunch of crap that they would make you do that. You're in business for yourself. You're risking everything. You're not getting paid a wage. You're out there in a 1099 position. And if you're going to make a life change like this, you should at least have all the time you need to make a decision. And that's what's kind of a joke, unfortunately. David, Ricky asked, David, what are great ways to recruit? I'm having trouble getting people to come to the meetings. First of all, tell me who you work for, Ricky, and then I'll give you some ideas. Yeah, and that's good you own that as your fault, Daniel. I mean, you certainly don't want to blame anybody else but yourself. I mean, I've made some pretty stupid decisions in my career. I could go over them a multitude of times, especially with the marketing side of final expense. Many times I've tried different stuff out. I'm a tinkerer by heart, and it's cost me a lot more in the short and long run. Enough so that I flunked out within my first 12 years because I got stupid and didn't stay focused on what works, because this business is so simple, it's complicated. And I'll be happy to explain a little more if you're interested. Okay, we'll wait for that question back. Lincoln Heritage, okay. Hey, Ricky, so yeah, I don't know if you caught the first portion of the call, Ricky, but for me, the big thing is, I don't recruit in the traditional multi-level marketing setup. I don't go out there and ask my friends and family to come on in and check this stuff out. I wouldn't be comfortable doing that, especially in the beginning. I don't know what your experience level is. If you've done very well, that's a different proposition. But other than that, I'm kind of weird. I never did well. Like, I got recruited into selling Cutco knives. I don't know if you ever heard of that when I was in college. I hated that. I hated going to my friends and family and bothering them to buy some shit from me. I just didn't like it. It's just not my personality type. In fact, I don't really want to do business with my family and friends. My dad sold a pretty large chemical company to Ecolab about 10 years ago, and I asked Dad, I said, what's your advice for running a successful business? Because he took it from one person to 250. Actually, I think it's 450. Anyways, he said, Dave, never hire friends and family. So I've kind of stuck to that as being my reason why I don't ask. But anyways, for me, what I do to recruit, you're seeing it right now. In the digital age, people are way more skeptical. Their BS meters are way more fine-tuned now than ever. And people know and have more access to knowledge. And so my strategy has been to put together a series of videos on YouTube to give out content as much as possible. There's some very good people who have digital marketing backgrounds. Gary Vaynerchuk is good if y'all ever seen Gary V. I've never been a big follower of his, but sometimes I see his videos on Facebook. And there's a principle he has. It's called the 51-49 principle. And the concept is you give 51% of the time, you're going to get a lot out of it. And so if you focus your marketing, you focus your efforts on actually getting out there and putting out content to help people out without asking for anything in return, what you're going to find out is a lot of people are going to be thrilled at what you're offering and are going to want to do business with you that way. That doesn't mean the old-fashioned methods of working your network and inviting friends and family and other people in to check stuff out is not working. I just decided in my business to go that route because I've got the knowledge base. I like talking to a camera. It's kind of fun, actually, after a while, after initially being frightened of it. And I can help tons of people out, most of which I'll never meet or ever talk to, with good stuff that will help them modify and alter their career positively. So, that's all I could say to that. You may want to try to, if you ever come behind agents, if you replace any existing coverage, get their business cards, calling them that way. I hear good success with Lincoln Heritage agents recruiting American Income Life guys. You can go online and go to your state DOI and pull up a list of agents and cold call them. I'm pretty sure that since you're licensed, it's considered a business call. So you can call on a list of AIL current appointees. Usually they're all miserable. They don't have leads. They got to go run these union appointments with free accidental coverage. There was a Lincoln group that was doing pretty well from what I understood doing that. So that's an idea. Know your competition, know who's weaker than you and where the agents are and frustrated with, and just cold call them. Say, hey, I'm with Lincoln. What's your experience with AIL? Are you happy there? And if they're happy, they'll say, yeah, I'm cool, man. Thanks for calling. See you later. If they're not happy, they'll spill into a whole bunch of, oh, this place sucks, yada, yada, yada. And then you can invite them to a meeting is a really good strategy. Good, Ricky. 13 grand, man. That's good. You still got a week and a half left. That's cool, man. Daniel says, I have a meeting. Thank you for your time, and the information will be getting an email in a few hours from me. Okay, cool. No problem, Daniel. Ricky asks, I typically recruit people when I'm out eating dinner or clients' families. I look as everyone as prospect, a client, or business partner. Sure thing. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways. It's just like any sort of business. The more people you talk to, you're going to get people unhappy with their careers. That's the kind of person that moves into life insurance anyway, is they're upset with what they're doing, and then they get involved in a career like this. Okay, so let's keep going here. The next thing I want to talk about is captivity. That's a big no-no for me in this business, and I think it's pretty much true for all insurance lines. You really, if you can help it, do not want to be captive to one particular carrier or agency. More specifically with one carrier. No one carrier does everything perfectly. There's no one particular carrier, even the ones I really like, that I would just like to have individually. I want to have multiple carriers because people we see have different health issues, they have different background issues, and each carrier underwrites differently. And so we want to have a sample of different carriers to underwrite and search around to find the best deal for. If you're hamstrung in one particular carrier, then you're hamstrung in one particular carrier. You're not necessarily going to write the best coverage at the best price and the best value for your prospects. And what you're going to be more exposed to is replacements, lapses, and persistency issues, meaning your business isn't going to stay on the books as long. So try not to be vested if you can help it. There may be lines of insurance out there where being vested is, I'm sorry, not being vested, being captive is fine. If the insurance carrier is very good in a particular type of field, or if there's a very strong marketing setup that actually gives you an unfair advantage. But for the vast majority of us, no matter what it is that we sell, it's imperative to make sure you've got options of different carriers. You'll sell more, you'll make more, and you'll keep more of what you sell. And you'll be happier for it. It's just the easiest way to get involved in this business. You want to sell based off of getting your best deal to your client. And the best way to do that 9 out of 10 times is being what we call independent, which is inverse of captivity, having different access to carriers. See ya, King. Thanks for joining again. Appreciate it. Angelina asks, thanks for answering. What is your email? If you want to, Angelina, go to my website. It's feagentmentor.com/contact. If you just go to feagentmentor.com, there's a contact button at the top. Click that, send me an email that way, and we can correspond via email at that point. Last point here is ownership of business. So this kind of goes back to what we talked about investing. You are in business. That's the mentality you should have when you get involved in the life insurance business. You don't want to be in a position to where you're building someone else's book of business, because you will be expendable. And you as an agent are in business for yourself. You're 1099 for the most part. That means you have to claim income tax and both sides of the Medicare, FISA, and Social Security tax. You know, and you're exposed to risk. You've got to carry E&O in many cases, errors and omissions insurance. You should own the business because of all this inherent risk in paying for leads and running business. And there's one, I remember one particular, there's a guy who wrote a book on Amazon. I don't know, I won't say his name. But what he would do is he hires a bunch of college kids that don't know any better. Hopefully you kind of see the interweaving similarities here. A lot of these agencies want to hire ignorant people, and I mean ignorant in the most respectful sense. People who just don't know any better. And they cold call all day, and this is back when health insurance is actually worth selling, and they'd go in there and they'd pitch groups health insurance, and then when the time came to collect the check wasn't made out to the agency or the agent. The check was made out to the guy at the top of the food chain. And all the contracts were signed by the guy at the top of the food chain. And the agent made whatever he made. But the point was, once the agent washed out or got fired, this was all of his book of business. He didn't have to pay this guy anymore at that point ever again. And health insurance primarily is a renewal-driven business. So this guy was pumping and dumping the new college kids that were just snookered into this, wow, lots of money, great lifestyle stuff. And he kept all the renewals after he terminated them, after they went lame. And that's a common setup with a lot of these agencies. And I say that because if you're going to be in the renewal business, you need to own your business. Or if you're going to be in the insurance business. So kind of beating the dead horse, but it's really important. It makes all the difference if you take the time to do the right thing. So make sure you own your business no matter what circumstance happens, whether you decide to do business continuity or perpetuity with the agency you work with, or if things just change and it doesn't make sense. You want to make sure that you have ownership of that business, and so it's yours and yours alone. Robert asks, how far do you travel from your home office for appointments? Good question. So let's see. Tomorrow, I live in Chattanooga. Tomorrow, I'm going to travel to a little town called Albertville, Alabama, as well as most likely a town called Gadsden, Alabama. Now, from Chattanooga, where I live, it's about an hour and 45 minutes. That's the maximum amount of time that I'll drive. I just don't like to drive as much. I don't like to drive any further than 2 hours, but I will do it if the prospecting is good and if it's a good area for what it is that I do, which is final expense. I really don't like working my home county, although I'll do it. I just don't like working closer to home. There's something about seeing people I've sold stuff to at Walmart that doesn't really appeal to me. I don't know what it is. It's not that I'm afraid to see them. It's just I guess I'm somewhat antisocial, other than me doing my YouTube stuff. So I like to work surrounding counties within generally an hour to an hour and a half driving distance. But I'll go to 2 hours if I need to. And I'll certainly work my home county if it makes sense for whatever reason. So hopefully that answers that question. Other than that, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to post them down here as I wrap this thing up. For the conclusion here, when it comes to the scam that could be the insurance careers out there, is to make sure you're aware of the realities. Be aware that most insurance is just Amway with suits on, and be very aware of the indicators that you're involved or could be potentially involved with the multi-level marketing outfit. They'll talk about recruiting more than selling. They'll talk about the lifestyles and how awesome everything is, and they'll sell the sizzle, but they won't really talk about the steak. Those are the biggest indicators. And if you see that, by all means, run away, do more due diligence, and try to find a smaller agency that's going to take time to train you, to do ride-alongs with you, to give you access to training material, to do regular checkups and call-ins with you, to help progress you in your training level so that you'll do better progressively as time goes on. And do make sure that if you sign any contract, that it's as much as possible giving you the upper hand regarding vesting, making sure you own your business from the first day, especially if you're out there actually putting your money to work to generate leads. It should be yours. And then lastly, you want to make sure that you're not stuck with one company. In most circumstances, more options is better than one, and you'll have more access to sell more people that have an interest but may have health issues that preclude them from optimal coverage or any coverage at all. Other than that, yes, it was. The steak was full of gristle many years ago. Yes, it still is for many places. Thanks, Robert. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's live stream. I'll be back next week, Monday, again for yet another training. And until then, it was good to see you guys again. Great conversation. And we'll see you next week, Monday at 12 p.m. for my No BS final expense training. Y'all take care. Thanks.